Whatever one thinks about the Russian government, whatever one thinks about the invasion, clearly the Russian invasion was in response to the refusal of the Biden administration to negotiate with Russia about Ukraine. When Russia invaded, that was a big decision because they knew they would be evicted from the world economy. They knew they would be sanctioned. They knew that their assets would be frozen. But obviously the Putin administration, the Putin government decided we can't take the unipolar world anymore. So the invasion of Ukraine, which I was surprised, I didn't expect them to, I thought they were still negotiating, but they invaded. And that changed the world. And the fact that the Biden administration could not crush Russia meant that the new world had started. Is it a good world? Well, we would call it a multipolar world, meaning not just American power, but now there's Russian power, there's Chinese power, maybe there's Indian power, maybe there's some BRICS power. Is that the solution to the dangers of social inequality or the danger of war? No. Before World War I and World War II, we had a multipolar world, and it led to World War II. So multipolarity is not our vision of the future. Our vision of the future is socialism. Socialism is the basis on which countries can actually live together in peace and cooperation, rather than endlessly compete for markets and raw materials and exploitation.
Very strong. You will feel influence. You're right now not in a very good position.
So Trump, unlike the Biden administration, or earlier the Obama administration, or earlier the George W. Bush administration, or earlier the Bill Clinton administration, is going back to an earlier era of U.S. diplomacy, one that we could see most notably led by Henry Kissinger, but not Kissinger alone, that recognized that both Russia and China are large countries that have to be dealt with in a particular way, meaning that they have to be treated seriously. So Kissinger in 1971 secretly visited China, then Richard Nixon came with Kissinger in 1972, they met with Mao Zedong, with Zhou Enlai, and so what the effort was by Nixon and Kissinger was not simply to treat China with a degree of respect and as a great power, but also to bring China into the US orbit against the Soviet Union. Now, many people are saying, or some people are saying today, that what Trump is doing is Henry Kissinger in reverse. Instead of taking China and bringing it into the US orbit by pretending to be its close friend, that the US is doing the same with Russia, trying to bring Russia into the US orbit. That's part of it. And there's a second part, which is that Trump is trying to reconquer Europe in a different way. The Biden administration and in earlier US administrations had used NATO as the primary way to maintain US hegemony over Europe. So after the collapse of the Soviet Union, it was a way for the US to basically take over Central and Eastern Europe. And what Trump is basically saying is, well, there's another way we can dominate Europe, a little bit different, not simply by the exercise of NATO, but by accelerating the coming to power in Europe of far-right political parties like AfD in Germany, RN in France, the second biggest party in Belgium is a fascist party. So Trump and Elon Musk and these right-wing reactionaries have, one, a realistic foreign policy towards Russia and China, but also a very far-right political agenda as regards to not only Europe, but also global South countries, including Latin America. Now, what Trump and Musk are doing is playing with fire from the point of view of the rest of the American establishment, because they think that if Europe really becomes fascist, which could happen again, it's an organic part of decaying capitalism, that they will lose control of Europe, that it'll be the political alliance between a fascist or semi-fascist Europe and the United States, if it's premised only on Trump, well, Trump might not be president in 4 years. A centrist party might be back in power in the United States. In other words, they're playing with fire by allowing the new alignment between the US and Europe be based on far-right politics rather than these centrist institutions, NATO, IMF, World Bank, UN, et cetera, et cetera.
The elections, they come and go. Some elections are, going. We're essentially going to bankrupt the country. So
if you look at the Trump administration, it's a coalition. Steve Bannon, who's not in the administration, is the leader of the America First movement. Far right, and he also wants the right-wing parties to win in Europe. And he's been traveling for the past couple of years to Europe to give speeches for the fascists. Then there's another part of the coalition, which is at war with Steve Bannon, led by Elon Musk. They are billionaires. They have a different agenda, but an overlapping agenda. Their agenda basically is to plunder the American treasury. They want to take control of Social Security, Medicare, Medicaid. They want to get rid of all regulations that minimize pollution. But Elon Musk is also a racist. He's from South Africa, but how did he get to South Africa? He got to South Africa because his grandfather, who had no connection to South Africa, to apartheid South Africa, he led a Nazi party in Canada, and he migrated in 1950 to South Africa because he wanted to live in an apartheid fascist government. So Elon Musk and his father and stepfather, they come from this racist fascist regime. They also want to promote racist, pro-Western chauvinist, white policies in Europe. So that's two of the wings of the Trump administration. There's a third wing. There's more than three, actually, but three basic ones, which are another group of billionaires who don't really care about Europe. All they care about is basically taking control of the American economy and getting ever richer. So I would say two of the three key wings of the Trump administration are dedicated to promoting the ultra-right in Europe. In the past, like 20 years ago, if you did that, your political life would be over. You couldn't do a fascist salute and say, oh, I didn't mean it. No, you'd be finished. But there's been a movement in the direction where first testing the waters, seeing how far they can go. They don't need to do this. There was a famous American politician in the South. His name was Huey Long. He said, if fascism comes to America, it'll just be wrapped in the American flag. Like, you don't need to use German Nazi iconography or German fascist salutes. But it's tempting for these fascist forces because Elon Musk is very excited. He feels like they're changing the world. These are people who have a messianic. They feel like we are the chosen people. We are the leaders. They're filled with this kind of hubris and arrogance of the fascists. And now they're feeling like, oh, we're getting away with it. Because even if the liberals attack us, our base doesn't mind. So they're kind of moving rapidly to make it more openly fascist. So that's why I say it's a fascistic tendency, but it's not a finished process yet.